Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, hanging with this nerd,
Ted.
And today we have for you from the Player's Companion, what does your race say about you? The Aarakocra.
If you want to jump down the description below, you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter. It's a great way to get gaming tips as well as learn how to game with us.
So, in this series, we explore, playing the different races and what does that mean for your role playing of those. Not so much the stats and abilities.
Right.
And Aarakocra is a little bit controversial. I feel like on this one we do have to address one of it's pretty much its primary ability. It's only real racial trait that it gets mechanically that makes him different.
It can fly.
It can fly. This really gets a lot of DMs, gets their panties in a bunch. They're like, I don't
want to allow flying characters in my game at level 1. It makes problems that I present too easy to overcome.
So there's that. Now that's fine if that's fun for your game. Do what you want. My game, I pretty much anything goes. Now the Aarakocras, the reason why that's so important is the fact that they spend so much time airborne and high above. So I really feel like that would change your perspective. It talks about how they're constantly grooming themselves, being clean.
They're fastidious.
Yes, they have very avian-like mannerisms,
right?
Which would be alien and foreign to most
humanoids.
Most humanoids. This is going more with like Earthbound,
right?
But yeah, so and
well, it says that. Like in here, like while humans have far more muscle movement in their face, they have the ability to smile and do these things that the ones with beaks don't. So rather than punctuate a sentence with a smile or a smirk, they'll punctuate it with different chirps.
With noises, yeah.
So instead of having that, if you don't understand what those chirps mean, you're not going to properly get the message. So,
which is interesting too, because as a player you might want to come up with certain noises that you use in different situations, and you don't have to say what they are. Like it could be a little mini game for you, like because you use the same sounds,
right?
In different situations over and over again. Maybe the other players, the GM, will start picking up on it,
right? And that would be a way to really up the role playing level. And it's like, oh, I finally get this now. And
it also talks about how they kind of like pity those who are earthbound and can't fly. So how does that come across in how they deal with others? Instead of pity, could it be disdain? That might be, or maybe they come across as haughty or arrogant because of it, because they just feel like, well, you're earthbound, so clearly you're inferior.
Right, and you might have mannerisms that you're used to seeing things further away. So when you set camp or stop, are you looking for a perch to look down on everything? And some of your fellow companions might be like, well, why is he always doing that? Is he trying to look down at us? What is this? And it could just be that that's your normal way of looking at things. If you're too close to something, it's kind of like, oh, I can't see that way.
I was kind of thinking about pigeons from above. But, all right, had a total train of thought there. Oh, it talks about the way they're always preening and cleaning themselves. Mm-hmm. So it makes me wonder, what do they think about the other races who aren't doing it all the time? Like do they like, oh my God, they're dirty like rats?
Could very well go in that direction. It's like, wait a second, it's been 10 minutes. You haven't brushed yourself off or done anything.
Yeah, like you could play an Aarakocra that is kind of like a neat freak, and almost to the extreme. A germaphobe won't touch the other players because they don't clean themselves enough. Really doesn't even want to touch the objects that they handle. These could all be characteristics that you build into your character.
And another direction, you're talking about objects, that they have a alien view on possession. They're like, you can't own the sky, so until someone really drills it into them, anything just lying around, they feel no problem. They could just go pick it up.
Well, yeah. So it could definitely enter conflicts, or like they come back with, they do the hunting for the evening, and they come back with a cow. Like, where did you get that? Like, or, some animal that's clearly a domestic animal.
Right.
I'm like, you can't take that.
What do you mean? It was just there.
Well, yeah, it was just there. I got it. It's dinner time. Bacon tonight.
From the
bacon.
cow?
No, pig. Different kind of domestic animal. I said domestic animal. Or you could also, some avians have like a fetish for shiny objects.
Right.
That could be their thing as well. Like, your character might be drawn to not necessarily the most valuable piece of treasure, but the shiniest.
Right. And like, it's like, okay, well, they want to just take it back because it's beautiful, or it's because it's shiny. They want to use that to beautify what they consider theirs.
You might want that character might want to like pick their trinket instead of roll, and they might just pick the shiniest thing.
Right.
Or maybe it would be kind of funny if you had an Aarakocra that has like a fascination with the paladin or the warrior because he wears the shiniest armor and he keeps it clean all the time. So like this weird fetish or attraction,
Right?
Because of the shininess of it. So there's definitely like these different quirks that you could play up as an Aarakocra that's going to make them much different than other races.
And another thing you could, if you wanted to physically, like, kind of, be in the character.
Are you going to say dress up in a feather costume?
No.
Oh, okay.
When you are an avian, you have that kind of split vision. So like you could be like kind of turning your head back and forth,
doing doing a little bit of physical role playing.
Right. So it'll get you into the character and have people seeing, particularly what your character is doing to, be more avian.
For some reason, I also kind of envision them as not having much of a sense of personal space and things like that, and where they get right up on top of you to look at you or look at something you have, where it can be very disturbing to certain characters, especially I think an elf or a dwarf would be really put off by it.
And considering the fact that their talons are weapons, while they're not trained, while their beak is not listed as a weapon, it's still sizable. It's still intimidating.
A parrot will F you up, and that's much smaller.
So imagine if, this thing got right up in your face.
Take your nose right off. Easily. Yeah, so there's definitely aspects to this, the physical aspects, the mannerisms, the way the Aarakocra sees the world around them, and they're not really from this plane.
Yeah,
they originate from
the plane of air.
From the plane of air too, as well. They might have a natural animosity towards creatures of Earth with the Earthbend, and they might even extend that to dwarves,
right?
Those who toil on Earth, because that's the other thing. They like open spaces. They don't want to be confined. Many of them are claustrophobic.
So they don't have any physical detriments to the character if you go underground. I know in some earlier editions, there were races that you couldn't be underground. It was literally, you'd become a catatonic if you were like an Avarial. They don't have that mechanically, but you could role play that. It's like, oh god.
Yeah, well, Aarakocras used to have something happen. It was a kind of tonic, but there was disadvantages that went along with being underground and being in those situations. But like you said, there's no reason why you couldn't role play your character, be hesitant and very resistant to going into those places. In a lot of ways, an Aarakocra doesn't make a good adventurer, in the sense that there's a lot of places I feel adventurers go, especially a typical D&D game. Then Aarakocra is going to be like, why do you want to do that? Yeah, you don't go into the ground. That's where you just don't go. This is no good. So the question is, first of all, are you allowing Aarakocras in your game? And if you are, how are they being played? How would you play an Aarakocra? Let us know in the comments below. While you're at it, like, share, and subscribe.
You can check us out over on Instagram.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.